Good evening, dear students, alumni and guests. My name is Professor Grażyna Rębielak, and on behalf of Warsaw University of Technology Business School, I warmly welcome you to today's inspirational lecture. I want to welcome students and alumni of our university, our school, Warsaw University of Technology Business School, our partners, our guests, and in particular, guests from the University of Salford in Manchester, Sheffield Hallam University, Polimi Graduate School of Management, Politecnico di Milano, Goa Management Institute from India, Baltic Management Institute in Vilnius and Brussels, HEC in Paris, the Management Center in Innsbruck, Zicklin School of Business, Baruch College, New York City University, and the University of Minho in Portugal. Today, the inspirational lecture will be delivered by Mr. Paweł Niźiński, who is representing our school. Paweł is CEO of Better Partner and Now Partners, founder of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Alliance Foundation, and a lecturer at MBA programs at our school. The topic he's delivering tonight is Greenwashing, how to communicate your positive involvement without risking the court case. This is our first inspirational lecture this academic year. I would like to take this opportunity to invite you for the next one, which will be delivered on 5th of December by Dr. Yukti Sharma from Goa Institute of Management. And there will be a topic on dialectic relation between policy and research in food marketing. You will get the invitation to the event shortly. Now I want to wish you a good time with Mr. Niźiński, and after the lecture you will be invited to ask questions on chat. So, Paweł, you are more than welcome to start your lecture.
Thank you, Grażyna, and thank you for inviting me for this first lecture of this year, of this season. I'm very pleased to be with you tonight, and just few additional words why in our conversations with Grażyna this topic came up. Over the last 5 years, I've been representing the movement which is bringing a bit different value to the way business understands its role and contribution to the system and to the society, which is the B Corp movement. And apparently the B Corp movement in US in 2006-07, when it started as a reaction to the huge wave of greenwashing, of the situations when the business was trying to say, hey, we are good guys, buy more from us. And there were like a lot of such statements and communication and advertising. And there was obviously a reaction because big portion of these communications were not true. I think that we observed that phenomenon in the communication on a big scale, growing in other places than the United States. Also, the situation is changing rapidly over these years. So probably wearing the hat of the representative of B Corp community, I would like to share with you a couple of thoughts, but not necessarily rooted in a B Corp movement. There will be a strong relation to it. And I hope that you would enjoy a little bit of in-depth, bigger picture, why it is important, why all of a sudden this topic is pretty everywhere in the business conversations. I recall that over 2024, there were like dozens of webinars, initiatives, some also initiated by us, by Better, a sustainability consultancy, which is delivering some services related to business transformation, as you see. And also just analyzing this wave of discussions. I think that on one hand, we treat this topic as very serious, but on the other hand, we are still not alerted enough really to transform and prepare the organizations. So when we talked with Grażyna about this particular subject, we thought, okay, it would be quite good to put some basic informations on the table, and understanding that this is just half an hour of a meeting, just pointing on first possible understanding which would help you, the participants of this encounter, get closer to this perspective, and probably when you are back with your organizations, with your professional life, you may see that some of the suggestions can be pretty useful and practical. So let me start with a couple of thoughts which I find relevant. First of all, I hope that you share this observation that ESG and sustainability is pretty everywhere. That we have this topic of the climate crisis, of businesses which are under scrutiny and called to report more and more. This is the area where sometimes our professional life interferes with our private life. We have the kids coming back from school talking about sustainability of the sun all of the sudden. I think that it's quite everywhere, which was not the case even this 17 years ago when Better started its operation. I would even say that green is a new black, and regarding the popularity of this term and this kind of buzz, which is pretty everywhere. And as often happens with this kind of vibe, some people love it and would like to really to support it and help it. Some people really hate it because they think that it kills their business and it's simply stupid, and they deny the climate crisis and all the problems our civilization is facing as a result of the capitalism of late 20th century. So there are reasons for this vibe, obviously, and I think that you might be familiar with this metaphor that that we are flying in the universe in this beautiful spaceship, but I want to say that we are not passengers. We are not anymore, and we cannot afford the situation that some of us are passengers, because the population of this crew on this spaceship is growing. The resources are shorter and shorter. We consume, we have an impact on biodiversity, we have an impact on climate, we have an impact on plenty of things. We develop technologies, yes, it helps, but there are more and more of us, and it doesn't look really very promising. Is it new? No. I have a feeling that this is really like overused subject. If you recall, even the Club of Rome reports from 72, that means that we are talking about this subject 52 years already. Are we coming to any really like fundamental shift or a change? I think that we are pretty far. So if you observe the change in the rhetoric of the Club of Rome, in 1972, they were talking about the limits to growth, that we should think about the degrowth civilization quite utopian, I'm afraid, topic regarding the global situation. Now, the Club of Rome is coming with a survival guide for humanity. But the title is quite interesting because the title says the earth for all. It shows that we all human beings, but not only human beings, we all live on the earth. We have right to be here. If we have right, we also have some responsibilities. And I think that this alert is not also calling for consideration. Is what is super frustrating is that this is like one of the many voices which are calling for rethinking the capitalism, redesigning the system, using the best of the system which exists, but also to develop the solutions which will help us to take what we have and pass it further to the next generations. Did we learn anything over these 50 years? I'm not sure. If you watch all these kind of maps showing the risks and opportunities the civilization is facing, you will get the maps which are getting more and more complicated and more kind of interconnected, if you see. What we've learned, I think, over the years is this little word interdependence. We realized that whatever we do in any corner of the world, it may have, and somehow it does have, an impact on the situation I have personally here in the place where I'm performing my business, when I'm running my hopefully good life or worse life, depending where you were lucky to be born. So interdependence is an interesting word, because if we treat it not only as a curse or connected with COVID, for instance, but if you understand it as an obligation or responsibility, this is something else. That means that our role is somehow different. Just to set the ground how far we are going with consuming this spaceship. If you see, we identified that there are some boundaries the planet has, and if they are overcame or assessed or crossed, we are putting our life and life of future generation in a real danger. And we succeeded in crossing 6 out of 9 boundaries. I think that is pretty scary. If you see these boundaries, we are really like crossing it strongly in different aspects. But is it hopeless? We don't know really how far we can go with abusing all these boundaries. But some cases from the history allow us to think that if we get organized, if we get together, if we collaborate more, we can come to the conclusions or to the solutions which are helpful actually for the planet. So this is not the hopeless situation. So the survival guide, and I would really recommend you to have a look what kind of turnarounds, probably oversimplified, probably disputable in the terms of the economics and possibilities. How can you do it really? But these turnarounds are a quite good guidance next to something like as sustainable development goals you are probably familiar with by United Nations. They are quite helpful in understanding what actually we could do if we want to contribute into the transformation of the business. If we want to oversimplify this picture, in fact, we can describe, following the suggestion of Sandrine Dixon de Clèves, with 3 C's. We experienced recently, and they put really under huge question mark writings of Harari, who thought that humankind, our civilization, will deal now only in our immortality challenge. It's not going to happen very soon, I'm afraid. So we discovered that COVID actually can really break this planet apart, and our value chains can be seriously broken, sometimes difficult to rebuild. The crisis is everywhere. We have war next door to us, saying that from the Polish perspective, but I think that many of us on the planet can say the same, that they have a war or at least serious conflict next door. So this is like the point we start. And we are talking about building prosperity for planet and people. This is really damn difficult, but I'm coming from the perspective where we say, don't make rumors, just roll the sleeves up and see where your activity is actually contributing for the good. Because if you observe what we talk in this movement around sustainability, we see that there is kind of a curve from the conventional business as usual approach, where we just consume the planet and resources and labor and whatever, and we don't bother what will happen later. Then you, in the middle, you have this sustainable approach, but I'm not sure if you would like to have your marriage sustainable. I would like my marriage to be hot, as the anecdote from one of the conferences says. So to me, it's not enough. Sustainable means to protect the situation we have now, here and there. What we need, we have to come even harder to work and to restore, which means that we have to bring some solutions which are helping building the economy, which is regenerative. Well, I'm one of the few probably who brought the term of regenerative economy together with the B Corp movement to Poland. And if you ask me what is regenerative economy, I think that I still have no idea. This is the term which is being constructed by many, with inspirations coming from many sources. But the overarching principle of this approach is that we cannot allow ourselves only to do less bad. We have to go further and try to regenerate what was broken and demolished over the decades of the consumptive economy. But what does it mean for business? I think that it says mainly business is under huge pressure. And if you observe that actually business is the only which is given trust from the people, I think that it puts even more responsibility on us. I think that you are familiar with Edelman barometer, and it shows over years how global population surveyed on 28 markets at least is trusting in different aspects, trusting different institutions, sectors, countries, authorities, whatever. Actually, it happens that if you are between 1 and 49, as you see, you are in a distrust area. So business is quite far from that place, and we see the slight improvement even there. So business actually is trusted, is above 60. Interestingly, NGOs, non-government institutions, and government are less trusted than business. Not to say about media, which was nearly below the score. Quite interesting, because it means that all these capitalists which are building the infrastructures, delivering products and services, are being trusted. If you look at the special sectors of the business, you can see that they are also perceived in a different ways by the audience. The least trusted, obviously, are social media, but there are sectors like technology, education, healthcare, which are given really like huge trust. What does it mean for us? I think that it's a strong call to really to protect this trust, because if we don't have this trust, our social contract is under huge pressure and may break. Like we see the cracks here and there, where the society is questioning the foundation of the whole system. Just to recall Yellow Vest in France, or riots against the Green Deal, which was very badly consulted with rural communities and farmers. We can have a very, very long list of that. I'm coming from the advertising background. I have a very simple biography. First half of my life was creating ads, and the second half is building sustainability consultancy and trying to deliver tools to allow business to go into the transformation towards more responsible, more ethical business for all. I think that if there was anything as an outcome of my work previously, in my previous life, was probably trust. If we were telling the truth and we were not misleading the consumers, we were delivering trust. If we were not doing that, quite opposite. So you have a couple of questions, because I think that there is a serious challenge, how to keep trust, how to keep involvement and loyalty, and how to build strong business, because people who are working for sustainability, they are not talking about closing the businesses down. They're talking about building industry, but industry which is focused on sustainable growth. So how to do that? There are a couple of answers for that. One of those is something which we call sustainable competitive advantage. And it also comes from the world of B Corps, benefit corporations. If you want to have some explanations, please push me to give you a few more words on that. The sustainable competitive advantage is actually building your cutting edge based on your activities and involvement in reshaping the business, having a positive impact on the society, changing the value chain models, not to have them extractive, abusing human rights, etc., protecting the nature. There are a lot of areas where you can build your sustainable competitive advantage. And I think that this is quite important question, because we in Poland, but not only in Poland, I feel, talking to different representatives of the business, we feel that all these new regulations, all these new constraints we have, they in fact block the business growth, they limit the growth of the business, whereas we have to think about more competitiveness, because if we don't have it in Europe, let's talk about Europe for a moment. We have United States, which is probably, you know, this little phrasing, US is responsible for innovations, China is responsible for imitations, and Europe is responsible for regulations, and how we can really keep the competition. I think that we can, if we stop thinking about this shift, about this transformation towards ESG or sustainability or regenerative economy, if we stop thinking about it in the terms of compliance, but if we start thinking about it in the terms of our impact management and our sustainability competitive advantage, then there is a question how to communicate. So no surprise that the business is coming with a term purpose, which is somehow derived from mission or values of the company, or the reason why the company exists. It's more than a decade when business is using this word, quite popular. And if you recall, such big players on the market, like the CEO of BlackRock, Larry Fink, who said that his fund is not going to invest in the company which doesn't have a purpose. It's a strong statement. It shows where actually the business is heading. But would it work? Would it work in a situation we observe now with Donald Trump claiming a lot about deregulating the economy of the US? Would it work with more regulations from EU? I think that it will work only under the condition that we use this regulation creatively and build up something which is like moonshot for our businesses, for our companies. But then it's really nice to see all these legal documents which are putting some boundaries against us, free business people who want to come with the message that we are so good, that we are really doing something good for the world. But now there is a concern because sometimes we're really overdoing here. We really put the green leaf against our factory and our product, against our value chain. And behind this green stamp, we are hiding our activities, which are not necessarily most pro-ecological and pro-society. So there are regulations. And if someone wants to deep dive into it, I really encourage you to have a look, because they give very, very clear directives. And I wanted to bring just some of that, because I think that it would be pretty useful to get back to your business context and say, okay, guys, are we safe? Because these documents, they already started to be executed. You probably heard about some process against Shell or KLM or various companies which were claiming too much about their pro-ecological approach. So now, having these documents obligatory for our business activity, how can we proceed and build with a really best intents, with best assumptions? How can we build the communication which is safe? Because sometimes, and I think that with this sometimes political correctness, we really do over the top. It happens, as with this little anecdote coming from the actually Benelux context. One friend of mine was advising the Belgian company, and I think that this is really an anecdote which really stopped me for a moment, and I really want to share it with you. Just imagine that you have a company, you have this beloved sustainability director, someone who is a star and engine of all the positive activities, initiator of some pro bono volunteership activities, and also some questions, are we really walking the talk, and really like a star. Also having this kind of profile, building a crowd of people working with him in the woods, running for the marathons, etc., etc. And just imagine that this person dies. Heart attack, it happens. And when he died, his company asked the people, you may say stakeholders of the company or the ecosystem of the company, probably you want to go to the ceremony, to the funeral, please don't bring cut flowers. Let's agree that the forest the guy was running through, we can reforest and bring some clever plants, place it there, and this forest will be devoted to this guy. And can you imagine the surprise after a month from the funeral that they received they were called to the court by someone accusing them for greenwashing because of this activity. And thanks God they had numerous emails and evidence for that. But I think that we are really coming to the point when we should really think over and over again, are we really building more inclusive and fair future for the business? So saying that, I think that we will and we are now in a situation that we are in between two paradigms. And I think that it also gives a call and tension between two realities, because I guess we will have, I thought that probably this new model of stakeholders capitalism will come and it will be our new chapter of the economy. I think that it's not going to happen. I think that we will have a long-lasting coexistence of two models of shareholder value, capitalism of the shareholders, and an approach which I'm in favor with, which is taking into consideration much more stakeholders, including the planet and including the next generation. Probably we will have a difficult challenge to find the competitive edge for the 21st century stakeholders possibility. And probably the greenwashing accusations, they come from the frustration, from many, many, many reasons, or sometimes this is just an example of this fight between two systems, because they provide to the market two different ways of defining the value. One value is created for all, the other value is created for the shareholders. These two conflict dramatically. How to solve it when the marketing is supposed to deliver growth? When the new paradigm is talking about the degrowth, and for instance, us marketing people are persuading people to buy more and more and more. I think that this puzzle is impossible to resolve. So this is really difficult tension. And I think that what we are going to observe is a pressure on the business, and especially in Europe, because I think that we will have growing scrutiny and call for accountability for the business. So what is the reaction? Obviously, the business reacts with more and more focus on purpose. Can we replace the growth narrative with a purpose narration? I hope yes, because purpose narration seems to be more collaborative, and we are not going to resolve civilizational problems pointed in this document by the Club of Rome or by the number of institutions, including United Nations or reports of IPCC. You know that probably. I think that we are not going to resolve it by our own. We need to build coalition. We need to collaborate. So there is a question if purpose can create a value. Well, yes, I think that if we do it on a bigger scale, this value is coming. If you look at the research provided by Havas Global Media Agency, they study for years already that the consumers really prefer to find the brands which have a meaning. In other language, they would prefer the brands which have purpose. Marketeers, CMOs believe that having a purpose is something which is constitutional for the brand value. So what we can do and how quickly? We can focus on brands which are meaningful and try to build meaningful brands. The other thing, we can avoid greenwashing. Why not? We can be a little bit more strict in the terms we communicate with the world. But what the hell is greenwashing? Probably all of us know a little bit of that. There is a very complicated definition by Client Earth. Actually, I love this organization. Corporate greenwashing is the use of advertising and public messaging to appear more climate friendly and environmentally sustainable than a company it really is. But to put it in a very, very simple words, greenwashing tricks us into believing that change is happening, but the change in reality is not. So it's mis-selling and it's misleading the consumer, which is a harm. It's a major harm. So there are different shades of greenwashing, and we happen to analyze it in depth somehow. And there are more and more of that, but just to give you a little bit of taste of this topic, if you see that there are different heads of this hydra: green crowding, green lighting, green shifting, green labeling, green rising, green hushing, the one I will talk a little bit more at the end, you see that it's quite complicated and has a different, I would say, shades of greenwashing. You can have green crowding when you try to hide yourself in the crowd. You have green lighting when community communications puts a spotlight on some green features of the operations of product, kind of green leaf. And then this communication is dragging the attention away from the real bad impact they have. You have green shifting, when companies imply that consumer is a guilty one and that we are shifting the blame on consumers. You can have green labeling. It's a nice practice when marketeers call something green or sustainable, but when you have a closer examination, nothing is behind. So the campaign look behind the label is actually pretty useful approach. Or green rinsing refers to when the company regularly changes its ESG targets before they are achieved. It's a very nice practice. You claim you are going to achieve some targets and then you change the goal, quite practical. And you can have like tons of rainbow washing when you do it with diversity, equity, inclusion, or human rights when you are giving money somewhere and you abuse your people somewhere else. But I wanted to point your attention on the last one, on greenwashing. And greenwashing refers to this act of corporate management team under-reporting. And if you notice all this trend towards transformation towards ESG, is using a tool of reporting of this, following the directive CSRD and trying to be compliant with this directive. There are a lot of details about the company, and companies tend to hide what they really do. And what I'm afraid, I don't particularly love reporting practice, but I find it useful, and I find it useful only under the condition that you take the data seriously and you use it for your managerial practice. If you don't, it's a rubbish. It's wasted time and money. So the problem is that the companies stop to measure a couple of things in order not to report them, in order to hide their practices, because they are afraid that someone from the outside world, competition, institutions, whoever, would come and pick this or that. This is quite dangerous because when they don't measure, they cannot manage it. We know it quite well. And if you have the research showing that so many companies, where even they have science-based net zero targets, they hide it, they don't communicate it, I think it's a very bad example. I think that this is really dangerous for the future of this transformation. So the question, will greenwashing prove to be one of the greatest mis-selling scandals of modern times? Well, I don't know. Probably as a humanity, we're super creative. We may create much more scandals. The reality and the future is so unclear and unpredictable, even more now, that I don't know. But clearly, I think that the greenwashing topic is going to be really one of the hottest topics in the public, because on one hand, it can be used for repairing the system and for repairing our own companies and to have some discipline in our sustainability management. But on the other hand, it can be used as a very dangerous tool by the competition to kill someone who is good, who is doing a lot for the prosperity of planet and people. So I think that this is really challenging question, especially having in mind that all these consequences of greenwashing are pretty dangerous for the company, because you can be taken to the court and have some judgments which are having a strong impact on your further activity of your marketing department or on your products, etc., etc. You can face huge reputational risks. And we know quite well that it's enough that the company is put into the reputational crisis to have a serious, long-lasting problem and how to protect your brand from that. Or financial, because the fines can be quite costly. So how to avoid that? And in few words, I think that the word transparency is a key word for that. If we are indeed transparent, if we are courageous enough to go openly to the public and to say, hey, this is what I'm doing, and this is the evidence for that, I think that this is the best what you can do. We were so much busy with the greenwashing subject that we called the deep dive session in June this year. And after this session, we completed the thoughts of lawyers, of strategists, of analysts together into the open document. So you can get it from web, summarizing these thoughts and summarizing some tips for the companies which want to do the green without washing practices. But basically, the model we created as a kind of starting point is very, very simple. You cannot limit yourself when you audit your company in the terms of greenwashing, only analyzing your communication. You have to understand what is in your claims, obviously, but then you have to go to your value chain and confront the things you are saying in the public with the information and with the data you have from your value chain. And thirdly, you have to confront it with your legal department for the compliance. If you don't check it, you are putting yourself in a danger. So what we suggest is to work with this triangle and to avoid a couple of things. So if you say that your company is working a lot for sustainability, it must be truthful. When you present these claims, they must be clear, they should be specific, accurate, and unambiguous. You cannot allow yourself to a kind of foggy picture, allowing a lot to interpret. And all of the data must be supported by evidence. We say that evidence must be one click away, easy to access by someone who says, okay, they are saying that, I need to check it up. So I think that the call is to deliver enough data, enough information, checked, tested, truthful, and very accessible. I wanted to leave you with a couple of warnings. So first, warning goes, be careful with labels. There are some real certificates with reputation, even when they are sometimes questionable, because even with fair trade, you can say, fair trade is leaving only 8 to 12% of the value chain between the green bean and my cup of coffee. Is it really fair? Or you can really challenge practically all of these labels, but still, they are real certificates. But there are also some strange stickers. And if you find something like that on the packaging of the product you are taking with your best will to pick the planet-friendly or bio-ecological product, whatever you have in mind, just be careful because there is nothing behind these labels. So first, be careful with labels. Second, be careful with words. There are different documents in US and in Europe which are pointing attention on which words are being under question mark and should be really supported by strong evidence. You have a list here. If you want to have the, in Polish language, they are listed here. We have like beautiful word bezemisyjny, or simply green, zielony, or environmental friendly, or producing no emissions. These are kind of very delicate words and should be really supported by the data. And next one goes, be careful with images. I was on the conference in Poznan like 2 weeks ago, and I've seen a beautiful green, obviously, poster of the fossil fuel company. And I said, Jesus, there is no real reflection how dangerous, not to say not truthful, how dangerous it is. And I think that it's quite difficult because I can imagine this company doing a lot in R&D to find green energy resources and so on and so on. But they have to be very careful with balancing the message. So the images also are being watched. Very last thought, just to share with you. When I'm thinking about the business transformation, I'm thinking about going from business as usual towards more purposeful, more meaningful, more regenerative business models people create. The same concerns, the same is related to communication. We cannot make the world more sustainable with business as usual, and likewise, we cannot make the credible, sustainable communication with communication as usual. So this should be revised, and I hope that I gave you a couple of thoughts and hints how to approach it. And if you would like to get the whole document, which is a little bit thicker than just these few words on the lecture, you can get it from the internet. It's enough to register and have this guide. Unfortunately, it's only in Polish, but we consider translating it to English too. Well, thank you very much, and I think that I can stop here and see if there are any questions. I think that the routine of this inspirational lectures is that if there are any questions, they are supposed to appear on the chat, but I think that that there are not many. So thank you very much for your attention and listening to the end. I'm really grateful. And well, let's meet in the lecture rooms of Warsaw Business School or anywhere else. And I hope that your communication will be truthful and green without washing. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.